Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's so wonderful to be out here in this gloomy Wednesday with you in the famous cruise terminal. Um, I don't often come here all the time, so it's interesting to know that there's actually more warmth in life outside of big ships and logistics. My name is Batando Mwendu. I'll be your host today with our amazing panel. And before I allow the lovely ladies to introduce themselves, I'd like to introduce the topic. Today we'll be talking about where heritage meets contemporary design, and the themes will be surrounded by stories of texture, color, and pattern, and who else to expand on what that means. So I'll allow the ladies to introduce themselves before we get the conversation going. So I want to start over to my far right.
Hello. Is it on? You can hear me? My name is Donna Dietz. I am the co-owner of a luxury homeware textile company called African Jacquard, based here in Cape Town. And we produce a variety of homeware textiles, including some accessories, and work with hospitality, large and small, and direct to consumer. And yeah, that's who I am and what we do.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bonolo Chipape. I am a founder of a homeware and lifestyle brand called Lula's Clan, based in Cape Town. And we are focused in creating African contemporary, culturally inspired textiles for home and fashion and spaces. And yeah, we love culture and we celebrate it through the pieces that we create. We use them as a vehicle for connection and to create a shared dialogue like this one. So thank you for having me.
How's it, everyone? My name is Harmony, and I am the founder and creative director of Udo and Harmony, which is a luxury fashion brand celebrating African clothing cultures through modern mediums. We create beautiful clothing, knitwear, accessories that celebrate our stories as Africans and showcase to the world, ourselves as Africans, as well as the world, that products of the highest quality can come out of and be 100% made within Cape Town, within South Africa, and within the whole of Africa. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies, for that wonderful introduction. I want to start right at the core. When we speak about heritage in design, what are the things that comes to mind? And this is a question directed to all of you. Bonolo.
When we speak about heritage in design, we talking about taking our backgrounds and then our experiences and speaking to a sense of place, using our materials, our rituals, our customs, taking everything that really represent us and injecting that into product development, and that is design. So yeah, translating that inspiration, found inspiration, to serve as a reference point of storytelling and really hearing people is what I think is important in railing out the design process.
Yeah, I think it can be quite multifaceted in that heritage doesn't have to be static. You know, so some of our collections are quite obviously and literally inspired by certain traditional African textiles, you know, even maybe down to a motif of an animal, because we weave with jacquard, which means we can weave pattern into the fabric. But it doesn't always have to be, you know, reduced down to this kind of visual cliche. It can be an interpretation, you know, which could showcase itself in a form of rhythm of colors or a palette or the feeling of a landscape. So for us, in terms of, you know, using heritage and Africa as a starting place for inspiration, we like to think that we're authentic in the way that we understand where the idea comes from, but we're confident enough to sort of interpret it in the way that we feel it can be interpreted, and sometimes that doesn't always come through as literal. And because we're weaving designs into the fabric, it's the inspiration is not just, it's not just the visual storytelling, it's in the fabric as well. It's built in and engineered into the fabric. So it's a visual story, and it's feeling and texture. And like I said, it could be the feeling of a landscape, or just the feeling of a place in Africa, or it could be a literal heritage motif or pattern that's, hundreds and hundreds of years old. So I like to think of it as quite a multifaceted aspect. And like I said, we feel confident that we can interpret it in those different ways.
And for yourself, Harmony?
For me, I feel that it is indeed also multifaceted, and and how Udo and Harmony interprets that is really all-rounded. From how we name our products as well is quite intentional. When we have a product that we use every day, or it becomes like a little home for you, whatever you're carrying, we call it the Kaya bag, because it's a little home for your bag. So it's not just, it's completely multifaceted for me, from sharing our stories, from how we name our products as well, and then how we communicate to our audience, to our customers, anyone that is drawn into the products that they're seeing. Because first they'll look at the garment and they'll be intrigued by the design itself, and then when we start sharing the stories, they realize that there's so much more to it than it just being a garment or a kimono or a knitted cardigan. It carries life to it, and that is what is so special about Africa and the motifs and all these little symbolisms that we have across the entire diaspora, across the entire continent, is that they carry so much life. And I feel like people resonate to that. Like, before they even know it, I feel like there's already a connection there, because it all connects back to nature as well. Yeah, so for me, that's heritage.
No, beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. And coming back to, I guess, the world we're living in now, and this word authenticity being the new buzzword is quite interesting in the world of design. And I want to know from all you guys, what opportunity in the world of trends and businesses following trends, what opportunities do business makers miss out on when following a trend and not maybe looking in for what you guys were describing in the aspects that Donna was speaking about, where it's materials weaved in from actual animals, Bonolo coming with the reference point of celebrating people, places, and where they come from. So when following trends as businesses, what opportunity do those individuals miss out on in celebrating that heritage that you guys speak about so wonderfully?
If I can say, it's a tricky one, like almost even a loaded question in a way. We've never really followed trends, and quite recently we've questioned ourselves as a business or as a design team. Actually, are we missing out on opportunities by not following trends? It's a really great feeling when you launch a new line and it's absolutely your ideas, your color palette, and it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, and then you go back and understand why it didn't work. And so I think it can go both ways. I think sometimes following the trends can create those missed opportunities, but so can not following the trends. So for us, I'm really exploring it at the moment, because I don't want to be the type of design house that is following trends, but I think there is some merit in there, and I think a lot of people go through a lot of effort forecasting. They look at the data, they can see what people are buying, where money's being spent. So I'm on the sort of opposite end of the spectrum of what am I missing out by not following the trends. And I think that's kind of where we are. Yeah.
For me, I like to marry the two. I also don't really believe in following trends. Udo and Harmony, or I do my best to create from a place that is sort of perennial, trans-seasonal, and goes beyond what is currently trending, rather creating beautiful objects of desire that are timeless, and that's what I like to call them as modern heirlooms, that they surpass the test of time, and yet at the same time as well you have to stay relevant. So how I create that relevancy is by intentionally choosing silhouettes that are just classic. Like, you could never go wrong with a simple v-neck vest, but then adding your own authenticity within that by telling your story through it. Because I don't feel that we have to reinvent the wheel. I think Africa has given us so much, the world has given us so much. It's just how you interpret it, and that's where that authenticity stems from, for me at least. Yeah.
For us at Lula's Clan, it's twofold. We don't follow trends. Mainly because I think you need to understand who's buying your product and why. So with us, we've gone through an intensive kind of research and deep dive into creating products that add meaning. What trends does is sometimes you find that there's nothing special. You lose the kind of the magic that makes it special. It is a long road because it means we're not speaking to everyone. So our challenge becomes speaking to those collectors, to those buyers, and getting their feedback to inform what they like. For example, if it's colors, it's from their perspective, unlike it's from a mass perspective of, okay, now red is in season. Our clients might not like that because their homes are not red. So I think from a trend perspective, we get our data from customers and that deep dive in the research. But yeah, we don't want to lose our authenticity, but we want our products to be adaptable enough and legible to appeal to our segments or targeted audience.
No, absolutely understand where you're coming from, because the consumer's perspective and the people who buy your products also informs the products you continue to make, and that makes it a long road. Speaking about trends, I want to move on now to, I guess, a global conversation. You ladies have been lucky enough to showcase your amazing designs and products across different international design platforms. I want to know, in those spaces, in those trade shows, what have you noticed that a designer, an African designer, offers to the table, and what are they offering there that maybe is not something that we could replicate? That's something that comes natural to us as African designers. And what does that global conversation look like, and where do we fit in? Not that we need to fit in, but what are we contributing? Anyone can go. B, please.
On the global platforms like that, or when you're exposed to other global brands, you start to realize that African design comes with its unique point of view, and that's what they can't replicate. It's just this multi-layered diversity that you can't even sum up South African design, but there's Scandinavian design, right? So there's so many multiple perspectives that one visual language or several visual languages can propose to people or to the audience in that space. And I think that's what makes South African design special, that it can really carry heartfelt memories, nostalgia. It can be classical, it can be abstract, it can move through time. And yeah, I find joy in witnessing the vocabulary that's very vast, and you can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I whenever we do an international trade fair, we were just talking about it earlier. It's overwhelming because you do get the sensation that you're this small fish in this big sea, and there's so much creativity and there's so much heritage from all these countries around the world, and people are blending and mixing, and you've got these third culture kids, also blending two different design aesthetics from two different cultures. And it's a lot. And I always, you sort of like, you do the walk, don't you? You'll like set like a specific time in your trip to go and like walk the whole fair, or you'll do it over 2 days, or it depends how big the fair is. But and I always think when I'm walking around, like I look at our designs and I look at the other designs from around the world, but I also look at like how these other businesses are executing their brand and their business. And I think if I wasn't South African and I was still doing this, how different would it be? Okay, for sure, maybe the design aesthetic would be different because the inspiration would be different, but it's not just that. It's just like South Africans, we just hustle, and we just know how to get stuff done. We such problem solvers, and it's like I said, it's not even just in the uniqueness of our design. You can see the eagerness, like, you know, look at the way we interact with buyers on a stand versus, I don't know, other countries, for example. I'm not going to make big comparisons, but like we've got such gusto. And I think, yeah, the answer is no. If I wasn't South African, it would be very, very different. And we just go there with this insane hunger, you know, to make it work, because we have to make it work, you know. And then, of course, that feeds through into the creativity. And I feel very proud when I can walk around and go, I didn't see anything at this fair that looked similar to my product. That's a really, really good sign, you know, because you don't want to look similar to a different business, let alone in a different country. So yeah, there is, just from what Bonolo was saying, from like the design perspective, of course it's so different because we're this melting pot of, you know, cultures and different upbringings. But it's not just the design, it's like, it's the execution and it's the passion. Not to say that other people don't have that passion, but I can just really feel it, like from, you know, often we do these shows as groups, you know, so you just really feel it. And there's a big uniqueness just in, I think, just us being South African and the way we were brought up and in this beautiful country.
Yeah, and I feel that we always stand out. And I also feel that we have so much to offer to the world. We can compete with the entire world. I think the only difference, or the only thing that might be holding us back, is more aggressive marketing, because that's what I've realized is happening overseas. I mean, it could be something as simple as a beaded bracelet that it just looks like anybody could have made, but it's the marketing behind it and how they aggressively push and try to sell that and try to get it in front of like however many people as possible. I think that's the only difference. Beyond that, we can compete at every level when it comes to craftsmanship, when it comes to quality, textile, sustainability. I feel like Africa is one of the most sustainable continents in the country when it comes to creation, and especially fashion. It's in our foundation to be sustainable, and we carry, as designers, we carry that on how, or at least I do, and I'm sure like you do as well, we all do, on how we create our products now. And I feel that we are potentially maybe even more sustainable than many global brands, but it's just marketing for me. I think that's really the only thing that we as South Africans, as Africa, need to push, just how we market our products, how we market our goods. Yeah, we need to be a lot more aggressive. But then that also means a bigger budget. That's, yeah, it's not cheap. But
No, I feel that wholeheartedly, and it's so beautiful to know that you can go anywhere in the world, but you can never get Mzansi flavor. And speaking about marketing, I tie that to visibility, and visibility in a marketing sense usually comes through collaboration. And Bonolo, you've had the wonderful opportunity of collaborating with Nando's to design a store. And I want to know what it looks like for you, Donna, maybe in hospitality and in fashion. What does collaboration look like when collaborating with a big corporate? What are the benefits that are in it for you? I'm obviously speaking from the surface, visibility being one, because these brands are bigger and they have bigger reach in different regions of South Africa, Africa, and the world. And what makes a good collaboration a good collaboration? We got time. Sorry to we got time.
Yeah. Is it gone? Oh, there. I'm going to divide that question.
Please, please.
I'll start with the benefits of collaboration. Is that through my experience with collaborating with brands, it allowed me different avenues to express my creativity and to explore the world of textiles and what they can do. So not confining them to just homeware or the home space. It provided avenues where patterns can cover walls and ceilings and become part of an experience for people to interact with. So that human engagement between the space and how people experience them was quite important for me. And that's why collaborations brought in, just to offer and to tell my story in different ways. Patterns can be applied on watches to anything. I can collaborate across sectors. So that freedom is quite important. But now the guiding thing is when you're collaborating with brands, they come with their own brand DNA. They have their own way of showing up in the world. What I've always been careful of is not diluting my brand and my why I'm creating this pattern and why it is specifically for you. So it's like being rooted enough, but also expandable to take in the brand architecture and create something that's tailored to them without losing your signature. Your third question was, no, that's it.
I think you answered it already.
That's it.
The third question is what makes a good collaboration a good collaboration.
It's trust. It's trust. It's transparency. It's creative freedom, and it's being able to marry the two viewpoints without diluting each other.
Yeah, it's almost, we've had some very successful collaborations and some very, wouldn't say unsuccessful collaborations, but just collaborations that have maybe somewhat just left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, you know, and it's hard to marry the two visions, and it's also hard to know, like, when do you say yes and when do you say no, because something might appear to be the start of a good collaboration, but you know, a total mismatch of ideas, or like you said, creative freedom. So it can be really, really tricky. And like I said, we've had some that have gone quite horribly. And I think, and I'm going to sort of touch on the sort of maybe the not so nice side of it, which I think is good for people to hear. Yeah, I think we've learned our lessons with these kind of collaborative experiences, and I'm sure you girls have had very similar as well. Is that there's like a set of fundamental questions that you almost need to ask from the get-go, and if it doesn't fit that sort of like formula to go forward with the collaboration, then you almost need to walk away from it, because you're not going to make it fit. And somewhere, it's either going to be a power struggle, or it's going to be, you know, maybe we're the smaller brand or supplier working with the big corporate giant, so you know they've got all this red tape and all these hands that like a document might need to go through, you know, that they don't have the flexibility on terms, or they're not even just willing to maybe listen to your side of the story. And it can be really disheartening, actually, especially when, you know, it will get pitched to you as a collaboration. And I think as a small business, you get starstruck and you're like, oh my God, that's so cool. You know, we're gonna collaborate with these people. But actually it's not a collaboration from their point of view. It's just they want something from you, and they know that they can maybe get it by pitching it in that way. And that's happened to us a few times. And now I've learned to identify when that's happening. And it's very hard to say no. It's hard to say no to ideas, collaboration, exposure, and money. But like you said, at the expense of losing your brand identity, or just losing, sometimes it's not even the brand identity. Like I've had collaborations that have had such a negative operational impact on my team internally, you know, that for them, they're running around for 2 weeks trying to make this thing work because I said we're going to do it, you know, and they're the ones that have to pick up the pieces, and it's it becomes unpleasant for them, you know. So it's and obviously I'm giving loads of different examples here, but it can be so good, but you really have to suss it out from the beginning, otherwise it can become a negative impact on your business and your brand even as well. So I've seen both sides of it, and obviously the ones that have worked out and have been successful have been absolutely amazing, and they're actually still going. And that's another, you know, if the collaboration has longevity and there's repeat business, then you know, okay, this is working, you know. It's almost like we should all get together and put together like a list of the do's and the don'ts before you, or like the questions to ask.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
How many do you want to add?
Not really. I don't know what else to add. I think the two ladies have covered it quite thoroughly. Yeah, I haven't had that many collaborations as yet, so I can't really also speak much on it. But the collaborations that I have had thus far have all been good. So, yeah, I can't. I don't have any more to add.
No, not a worry. I think my biggest takeaway from what you guys have all shared is, number one, identifying your why. Number two, you using a design vocabulary that meets the expectation of your collaborator but doesn't jeopardize your voice. Number three, maybe understanding is this collaboration more for a resource perspective, in a sense, am I going to be able to produce more things outside of my capacity and all the numbers increase? And then last but not least is coming back to what you were saying, Dee, do I see myself working longer with these people? And if so, what does that relationship look like? Which I think is very important. And now, leaving the collaboration conversation, coming to the buyer conversation, we live in a world where the current modern buyer is at the hand of the internet. They are fed with so much inspiration. They know exactly what they want. They know exactly what's trending. And that trend is constantly changing on the day-to-day basis. In your opinion, or in your view, in your business, what are buyers looking for today?
I don't think they even know half the time.
Yeah, I think it's just resonating with that one person. I mean, I'll give you an example. Was it last year? Some of us traveled to Maison in Object, and we were like in this little corner all the way at the back at this trade show in Paris, and yet somehow South Africa still managed to stand out, and most of us still managed to find and connect with our buyers. And one of the buyers that I connected with was a man from the Netherlands who has a salon. And within that salon, he sells clothing. So it's like high-end, upscale salon for like high-end clientele. And I don't know how it happened, but somehow it just happened that, you know, he saw the Zuri cardigans, one of my products, absolutely loved it and placed an order almost immediately. And maybe a month later, he emailed me saying, hi, me and my partner are in Cape Town and we would love to visit you at your studio. And they came to visit at the studio and then placed another order. So it really is just, it's some form of connection, really. You can't, there's no way to calculate how or when it's going to happen, but when it does happen, it's wonderful. If your product resonates with a buyer for whatever reason, whether it is the look, the story, the colors, the textures, wonderful. I think, yeah, it is just finding that those your people, your brand's people, and yeah, looking at how you can connect and then continue that connection and that relationship.
Yeah, I think what you say about sort of like finding your tribe, you know, especially trying to know what the consumer wants. I think that's where I struggle the most, because there's millions of us, there's billions of us, right? And obviously you have your little tribe and your customers that just get it. You know, every time you launch something, they're like, I want that. And that's great, but we're always trying to expand outside of that, right? So I think when it comes to the consumer, sure, I think I really do struggle, and we have some hits and we have some misses. But of course, we supply hospitality at large, and that's a hell of a lot easier. You know, there's we know what the buyers want in that regard because there'll be a brief. You know, we're able to sort of meet them where their brief is or where their demand is, and you know, we as a business we're a textile brand, but we also see ourselves as a design house, so we do a lot of customization for hospitality. So we of course have a catalog, and you know, anyone can order off the catalog, but we will often tailor specifically for a lodge. Some of these lodges, you know, they're charging thousands of dollars a night. They want something that's not on your catalog. So we will design specifically for establishments or hotels or lodges. And then it's easier because then you kind of know, like I said, you know what they want. They also know what they're selling to their customers. They're approaching us because we are a luxury brand and we're trying to make luxury more functional, I guess. So from the B2B perspective in hospitality, I find there's a formula, and that's quite easy to follow and easy to please. But the direct to consumer, like I said, it's still somewhere where I'm always trying to figure out what are we doing wrong or right. And yeah, so that's my take on those two types of customers.
For us at Lula's Clan, we've learned to identify our customers to, they love our storytelling. I think that's how we connect with people. So our buyers are looking for products that really hold sentimental meaning, that really showcase the process of how it's made, why it's made, and yeah, just a deeper emotional connection to the product. People are no longer buying products for the sake of, I just want, it looks pretty. So we've learned to kind of develop and tap into what are some of the intrinsic qualities that really creates value for the customer. Is it speaking to maybe our personal founder story? Because then you find that they find resonance, that they remember that, oh, I also grew up like this, or this reminds me of this. So that memory is quite important. But also with businesses or B2B, it's more of a unique point of view or perspective, distinctive style. So your tribe will find you. But also, are you able to deliver? And is your cost and price right? So they're very, because now they're speaking to the consumers, right? They want to make profit. So can your item, yes, we get the story, it's beautiful, but can it generate sales for us? Yeah, so that sustainability from the buyer side is quite important. Do we invest or not? Yeah.
Wow.
I also think, just touching on what you said, was the connection that you had with the client that came and, you know, they came and visited you and then placed an order. I think being a small business or medium-sized business in South Africa, you're still in that unique position that you can still make connection. And, you know, sales is relationship building at the end of the day, you know. So there's so much that you can offer by still remaining somewhat not small but nuclear in some kind of way, where you can still connect personally with your buyers and see a result that you might not have seen if you had just sent your sales team. Or so I think there's also that interesting sort of like shift to acknowledge as well, especially as your business grows as well. I've always been a big believer of growing steadily, because these shifts do happen, and overnight you lose that touch you know, or you don't have the capacity to go and see that client yourself and you have to send somebody else, and have you trained them properly? Are they going to tell the story like you've told it? Are they going to be able to connect with the client like you've just connected, you know? And then you start having to implement processes and systems just to continue seeing that growth, you know? So it's like a really interesting phase where you can still be at that point of contact. Do you know what I mean? And it is something that as our business grows, I always say it doesn't matter who we're recruiting, I'm always in that last interview. Even if they're in a department where there's a supervisor and a manager above that supervisor, I will always sit in the very last interview just to see who we're recruiting and who we're bringing into the business. Because I need to know that that person can carry through our spirit and DNA, but also just get it and know that they can still connect, you know, whether it's a sales position or whether it's a manufacturing position, that they understand their commitment to quality control, even though they're just cutting fabric, you know. So I think, and you know, a lot of us small businesses in South Africa, we are small to medium-sized businesses, and we do all still have that unique position, and I hope we never lose it, and I don't know how you don't lose it as you grow bigger.
Yeah, because someone is going to come, a big business is going to be like, hey, so about this business of yours, what do you think about this fee to buy the thing, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's this conversation about selling out and what it means to sell out, of which I'm on the fence of. As makers and creators, we build things to a point where you also want it to sustain you. You guys will have families. There's a longer life after the fact, but that's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about that. Not to open that can of worms.
No, but it is. It's the concept of selling out. It's how do you remain, somewhat true to yourself without, because you want to grow, you know. And a lot of us are also in you know, we're creatives, and then we realize, oh, we've got this business that can create jobs, you know. Now we're inspired by something more than just our creativity. We realize we're contributing towards the economy and the grander scale of things. So you know, you want to grow, and then you just want to say yes to everything. And coming back to the collaborations, and collaborations come your way, and you need to weigh up whether you say yes or no, or there's so many facets of it.
I think it's more about understanding what type of brand you are, and one, not being everything to everyone. So I'm not planning to go super mass. I'm planning to be an experiential brand. So so that is quite important to me. So I will keep it contained so that it remains an experience of, I can bring people into the studio and give them the walkabout of how the textiles are made, give them the whole story. So the minute you don't have a cap to, it's not capping your growth, but it's capping like the experience of your brand to preserve its authenticity. I think that's very, very important. You might scale too quickly, you might hire lots of people, before you know it, it's just a product. Yeah.
For me, I think it's just remaining steadfast within your authenticity, even as you do scale and as your business grows. I personally do not feel that there is a reason to sell out if you, again, know what your brand stands for and you want to remain within the ethos that you created as the founder, and the people that you build onto, that you add to build onto the business as well by training them well. I don't think there is a reason for anything to be diluted as long as those foundations are communicated well within all of its growth stages. Yeah, but it depends on the individual as well. For me personally, I wouldn't want to sell out. I would love for Udo and Harmony to continue to grow within telling African stories through contemporary fashion, perhaps expand to other products as well, but still remain completely steadfast within that foundation. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, ladies. My next question is about inspiration between being business owners, project managers, in between conversations with manufacturers, the future of where the business is going. I think I want to know, how do you guys fill your cup? What inspires you? Where do you get inspiration? And what does it look like? I know you guys are mothers. It's not just the business, but what does filling your cup, and what does that look like for you from an inspiration point of view?
I'll go. Filling my cup is definitely spending time with family. And I only now later I realized my naming of Lula's clan. I've always been drawn to family, but it's become like just this divine little nugget of, oh, that is why. And just being surrounded by family, friends, nature, listening to music, relaxing, rest becomes very important. But also just sitting around with your peers and just engaging in conversations that matter and conversations that draw inspiration. Yeah, like just don't be afraid to imagine more, and don't be afraid to just vividly escape this world. So that's one of my ways. Remaining or keeping my childlike spirit is very important in my approach to my work. So maybe identifying like the things that I'm happiest when I am at trampoline park. And then the lights, the purple blends in the pink, that could be a color shade. Because inspiration works like that. It's not when you sit down and plan it and like you forcing it. It needs to flow. So that's just my approach to, cool.
I think I've always been a bit of a workaholic to some degree, and they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So I've always had work filling my cup, as embarrassed as it sounds to say. But yeah, I absolutely love what I do. Our studio and our head office is like a second home to me, and I'm very fortunate that I've built the business to a point that I've been able to dive into every aspect of the business. And I joined the business 6 years ago. My business partner started the business about 10 years ago. So for the last 6 years, I've been sort of trying to work out what fills my cup at work, because I know working fills my cup. But now, what at work do I want to dive into the most? And that's been great. Just figuring out exactly where I'm happiest, and I have figured that out now, and it sits somewhere in between being able to creatively direct the company, but also the strategy and the leadership. I think strategy can be such a creative space to be in, and I used to view it very differently when I was younger. I wanted to get an MBA, and thought reading all the strategy books out there. And to be honest, I think maybe a handful of them helped me. But the moment I realized that strategy is actually such a creative practice, and ultimately you can just do what you want at the end of the day, as long as the outcomes are good, I actually started seeing success. So I find a lot of joy in the overall strategy, and just the leadership, just seeing, knowing that you've recruited these individuals that are showing up to work, maybe not for the exact reason that you're showing up for work, but to some degree, it's such a great feeling. And I was doing a review with somebody the other day, and she was just saying how much she loves her job, and she said something along the lines of, doesn't matter what you say, you're never going to get rid of me. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I'm so lucky to have someone that said that to me, and she's so happy to be here. And that definitely fills my cup. When I see that the team are happy to be where they are, then I go, okay, I think I've done something right. And then that in turn definitely fills my cup as well. So yeah.
For mean, I get a lot of joy from remaining curious about what I've chosen to do, about life in general. I mean, I resonate with everything both of you ladies said. And also just spiritually as well, like my strength comes from the Lord, I always like to say. So just remaining connected to God and allowing him to inspire me, the whole world to inspire me, because you never know where inspiration may come from. It may come from reading a book, listening to a podcast, watching a documentary. I mean, there's so many vessels for inspiration. But for me, it really is just remaining curious and open to, yeah, just wherever it may come from, that, you know, that source to fill my cup, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, ladies. I'd like to extend an opportunity for you guys to ask these wonderful ladies questions. Please, they are very sweet. They do not bite. Do we have any questions in the audience? We have a hand over there. Oh, a hand over here.
Mics are so intimidating. I don't know how you guys do it. So I wanted to go back to the topic of collaborations. I was just curious as to how do you identify a good collaboration in terms of ensuring you're not getting the short end of the stick, you know what I mean? That was just something I was curious about.
I think you need to ask questions. Don't be afraid. The opportunities, when they come, you're too scared to even ask questions of what does this mean to me? Because you want the opportunity. You know that it's a foot in the door. But what I've learned is the more you ask, the more answers you'll get in terms of whether or not that is the right collaboration to say yes to. Otherwise, the effects of a bad collaboration, like Donna said, can be detrimental. So know what the collaboration, how it's going to help you more than anything. Is it financial? Is it visibility? Is it brand affiliation? Because there's currency to all these things. Or are you learning? So not all collaborations are going to come, and yes, they might not offer a lot of money, but you need to ask yourself, what is it that I can learn from this? Is it going to propel me, my business? So yeah, ask yourself those questions and also ask them so that you see the transparency, because that's going to show what type of relationship you're going to have with them and who owns the work.
And get it on paper, you know, put it on a document and sign it and have it as an agreement. But what Bonola said is correct. You know, those questions of like, do we want to make money? Is it a marketing collaboration? Am I the bigger brand and you're the smaller brand? And, you know, you're sort of piggybacking off my exposure. So what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? And if it's about making money, how much money do we want to make? Are we splitting revenue? Are we splitting margin? How are we going to measure the success? How long is it going to go on for? You know, who owns the work? You know, it could even be something like the application of the design. You know, I'm allowed to use it for bed throws, but you're allowed to use it on jackets because you're fashion and I'm a homeware or something, you know. So I think there's a lot of nitty gritty that does have to be asked. And I think if I can talk from experience with like smaller collaborations with smaller brands, I think where I've gone wrong is actually just having too much trust that we want the same thing. Because we, you know, come from the same industry, or maybe we somewhat knew each other. So those are good conversations to have in the beginning. Is also like, okay, at the end of the day, this is a business collaboration, and we need to be able to measure the metrics and know what the outcome is. And then obviously, if it's a collaboration with a much larger entity, then you definitely want some documents in place. Because sometimes, most of the time, it's sort of leaning on more of the exposure side for you, and you want to know what that means, and is it worth your time, you know? Yeah. So those questions are I mean, we could put a list of questions together after this that could be shared with this group. Questions that we've asked in the past that have worked and haven't worked.
I'd say, just to add on, create your own agreement. Yeah, that will detail all the things that maybe your restrictions, what you allow, what you don't. If communicating it is quite difficult, then you just hand it over and they have a read and then you guys can discuss after.
Thank you so much for that, ladies. There's another hand over there.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Temba, Youth Development. Just want to know, in terms of collaboration, do you provide trainings for the youth in township, and which ages are you based in?
Do you want
It's maybe more of an answer for the CDI.
Hi, Timba. You can always, you can chat to me after, and then we can discuss your question further.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to ask, while speaking about inspiration, how do you sort of draw the line and manage the line between sort of like inspiration, like you were talking about, but also not like appropriating or like copying straight off of, because we're talking about like different heritages and cultures and stuff like that. Yeah, because obviously you don't want to be like redundant, but how do you manage the line between what you're trying to bring across and not directly appropriating something as your own?
I think that's a perfect question for you, actually, yeah, because of your designs.
Okay, cool. Let me try to break it down. Okay. In my practice, I try to build systems. So the inspiration can be culture, yes, but it often relies on deep research and really stripping down what that culture, let's say in Ndebele, and studying its fundamental bones of how it's constructed. So with creativity, then you kind of need to apply your own perspective and your point of view or natural creative expression. That becomes your hand signature or mark to the source that you've found inspiration in. There is a balance of, I think inspiration provides the story and the grounds and the deepened meaning, but how you express it and what you translate it into gives it the adaptation and creative freedom to become whatever it is, so that it's not just copied, but reinterpreted. And I think with heritage and culture, it's supposed to change. My job or role is more of like to unpack and research its next expression. So I'm constantly on guard and looking at how is culture changing, how is it transforming, and how is it reflecting these times, and what are the brand codes and elements I can use to plug in to my own point of view. So that becomes important, and then, yeah, then you're not just copying and replicating without meaning, without intention, without understanding. Yeah.
I have a question. With the very like heritage-based designs, like in Ndebele, for example, are there certain elements that you're not allowed to blend together? Otherwise, it's appropriation.
So I look at it from an eye of a Bauhaus architect.
Okay.
I look at the lines and line form. I'm not concerned with the circle or meaning of the circle, because I'm not taking the meaning, I'm taking the structure. Okay. And So for example, when I design a rug and I want to talk about family unity, it's how I use the same line style, not the shapes, but to express my own story. Okay. So that I don't creep into anyone's territory of, no, but that's a symbol for a woman. It allows me to create my own symbols and shapes, and how I place them tell my story, and it's not even about the Ndebele people. Yes. So that's what I mean about, like, you kind of have to find your own cues. For example, I'll look at maybe baskets. An amazing designer that I love, Mesh T Designs. So she went to a village in the Eastern Cape, and the baskets have all been in our maybe tradition or South African tradition heritage. She looked at the weaving, but her take on it was through a bench. It does not that medium does not represent a basket. You know, there's two different things. It's how she's adapted the technique and the knowledge to create something completely new. And I think that's our role, is to really find the little nuances of what makes these cultures special. Don't focus on too much of, like, obviously there are territories, like, you can't go into like spiritual motifs. I don't understand it. It's not my avenue of research, but I will take the line. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very interesting. I've got one example that I can share, which I think you guys will all like to hear. Is we work with a lodge that has a bunch of, well, like an umbrella lodge that has a bunch of lodges in the Masai Mara, and they wanted us to weave the Masai check into these tablecloths. But actually, the sequence of those stripes in the check are protected. They belong to the Masai tribes. You cannot actually replicate the exact sequence that you see in those Masai blankets. It's illegal to copy it. So we didn't know that at first. You know, we'd sort of started like looking at photos and images of Masai tribes and the blankets and sort of interpreting it in our own way. And then somewhere along the line we read, oh God, we've got to be very careful with how we're sequencing these lines, because it's a patented design. Even though it's just a simple check, it belongs to them. So we did something quite cool, actually. We took the name of the lodge, and you know how you can create a barcode online? So you can basically take any word online and tell it to barcode this word. So we took the name of the lodge and we put it into like Google and told it to generate a unique barcode for us. So it gave us this sequence of stripes, and then we took that sequence of stripes and created the stripes going the other way and basically created this unique check. And this is now a repeat design that we do for this client maybe 4 times a year. We do all the table linen, all the napkins, and it's constantly the same check design. It's our check design. We by no means call it the Masai check in any way, but it was the brief from the customer for the source of inspiration. And I'm always just so proud to tell that story, because we very nearly actually not copied, because we just thought it was a basic design, not basic design, it's a simple design, you know. There's no, like you say, symbolism or spiritual symbolism in the check. But we had to educate ourselves and then create this unique check, but no one actually knows when they're seeing the check, the name of the lodge is actually the check, which was kind of cool. And that's the only time we've really ever done anything like that. But I think that was a cool story to share.
But then you've discovered the design principle. Yeah. So like you found a way or a method to translate the idea into a different form, using technology, using innovation, but it still gives the feeling of. Exactly. Yeah. So it's their name. Yeah. Sometimes it's about like, how do I capture the feeling, the essence, and because things can look distinctively different, but also carry the same feelings. But it reminds me of a Maasai or
Exactly. Yeah.
afternoon, everybody. Mine is about pricing, the pricing experience here. I once read a story about Marshall. I said a story that people are complaining about TCIs. That is very expensive. Prices are very expensive. And yet, do not shy away in buying expensive clothes, expensive clothing from Ocean, and so on and then. And he said, and yet those guys, he mixes with those guys, they know him, they respect him, and they appreciate his work. But people don't have to know product. So your experience with the pricing here is
Yeah, so I've had the same complaint as well about some of my products and my pricing, and I always take it back to its creation. So Udo and Harmony intentionally chooses to create all of our products locally from the raw materials that it sources locally. The cotton is local, and then it's manufactured locally as well. Nothing is ever outsourced. And what most people don't understand is that is not the most affordable approach to take, unfortunately, when it comes to manufacturing bespoke and completely local, because it would be the easiest decision for Makosa or Lula or African Jacquard to take their products overseas and manufacture at those bigger manufacturing hubs. But we intentionally choose to grow our own supply chains because that is where our value lies, and the value within our economy lies as well, is to actually choose to intentionally manufacture locally. And it's tricky sometimes to explain that because they are then usually comparing it to a Zara or a brand that is fast fashion, and there's no way to compete with that in terms of price. So what I do is that I just do my best to explain to our customers, not necessarily explain, but just to communicate to them the story behind the products, the intentionality behind the designs, and the fact that it is made locally. And that is why it is at a certain price point, because we also have to manufacture it at a certain price point as well. And then that means then the margins that we have to then get to retail price is what it is. It's not something that you compare to a Cotton On or a Zuri, and especially with Makosa, because he has his own machinery. Like it's a lot. It costs a lot of money. So for each of our brands, Makosa as well, we'll find there are people that will want to make that investment. And I think Bonolo, you said you don't have to cater to everyone, and that's okay. So for those that have the means and the disposable income, absolutely. And for those that will find meaning enough that they might want to save a couple of thousands of rands in order to invest in a product, they will do that. But unfortunately, we can't compete. And also, I think we just have to understand that we are not necessarily then having to cater to every single person out there, especially those that have that opinion that no, it's expensive. But
I think it's definitely a journey, and it's definitely, if you're starting a business or a brand, something that you should be looking at from the very beginning. And if you're doing some kind of incubator courses with CDI or a lot of these organizations, pricing will come up in the very beginning because you need to set it right from the start. There's no point building a brand and building all this market equity only to, a year or 2 years later realize you want to change your pricing, So you need to work out who are you selling to, what kind of model do you want? Are you going to go direct to consumer from the beginning and stay that way? Because then your costing structure will be different. Or do you want to be able to get to the middleman, supplier store that's selling on to the customer? So now you've got a double costing structure. And there is this misconception, I think, sometimes that producing in South Africa should be cheap. It's really not. And I think a lot of us have pretty standard markup structures, you know, that you would learn from the beginning. And in my case, where I've inflated margins or markups for certain products, it's because I've factored in like the R&D of a certain product, like knowing like, okay, this is a super unique product and it actually took months to develop. I can't just apply a similar pricing structure or markup. So with Makosa, if I can just think of like how, like a lot of his garments, if you look at how they're knitted, they're almost like knitted to shape, right? It's not continuous fabric. So that in there is already going to be more expensive to manufacture something like that. So yeah, we've also had it. We've also been told our prices are expensive, and you know, it took. If you're comfortable with that costing structure, you know that all of your staff are being paid well. You're still making a profit, so that you're getting paid, and your business can still be profitable, and you're happy to sell at that price. You just stick by it, and eventually, your tribe will come, and they will pay for what they know is in the value of what you're making. And like you said, you can't please everybody. Somebody's not going to understand the quality, and they'll go to a cheaper source. Yeah.
I think from my experience, I've learned that there's an important work that we're doing here, and I think Makosa understands it. He's not selling a garment. He's selling a history of a people, their culture, their stories, their technique, memories, and that's what people are actually buying. They're buying the value. The problem with maybe our South African market, is that they don't understand. Remember, we're only getting our first art collectors now, especially maybe the Black community. So there's this huge gap where we need to bring them along to understanding the value of what we're creating and why it is important in archiving these designs, these histories. So as soon as we can like close that gap, I think that's when the conversation of, I see the value in what you're doing. And they'll be able to understand the pricing without comparing us to a Gucci, right? It's so easy to buy a Gucci for the South African market, but to invest in another South African brand, it's like they don't believe that the same quality can be achieved. So there's a long way in educating people of the importance of what does it mean when you're buying Udo and Harmony's jacket. It's not just a kimono. It's something that is of archival value, that is of importance. So yeah, I think that's just the battle is really bringing people to understanding the practice more, teaching, yeah.
So important. Unfortunately, we ran out of time for you guys to ask questions, but these ladies are still around afterwards. Please walk up to them, and if you are shy to ask a question, I promise they won't bite again. Thank you to the CDI for having us, and you guys turned 25 years old. That's an age of a human being. Can we give a round of applause to that? Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing. So much to unpack. I've learned a lot today. I just want to give a vote of thanks, especially to DEDAT, the Department of, I want to say it right. I don't want to say it the wrong way. A huge thank you to the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. They've made this creative exchange possible as part of funding on a growth coalition that they're on a mission on. A huge thanks to them, and I want to say a huge thanks to you guys. You guys are such trailblazers in the industry. We look up to you. You inspire us here at the CDI, certainly myself. I've met you guys years ago, and I've watched you. You are such an inspiration, trailblazers. You are setting a standard, and we thank you and continue the amazing work that you're doing. Thank you to Batandwa. Like, yeah, I am a fan. Thank you for the amazing work that you do. You really, ran this so amazingly. And last but not least, I want to thank everybody who's here. I know you've taken time from your businesses to be here. We really appreciate you coming, taking your time and just being in our new space. Part of this is trying to activate this space. It's such a huge space. We want it to be a creative space where you can all come, network, meet, host events like these ones, and we hope in the future we will be hosting many, many more. We have some time, we have tea for you to keep you warm a little bit, and just a few minutes to network, chat to somebody. You never know, it could be an opportunity for your next collaboration. Thank you so much, everyone.